Hello, we're here today with Quinn Trapp, Client Relations Manager at Atlas Pest and Wildlife Control, to talk about common pest issues in condos. Hi, Quinn.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so nice that you're here. This is something we haven't talked about before, and yet every building has its share of pests and surprises. So I'm
Yes.
excited for this one. Before we get into it, tell me a little bit more about yourself. How long have you been in the business?
So I've been in pest control. I actually just hit my sixth year probably a few days ago, to be honest. I love it. I kind of fell into it, to be honest, and it's an industry that you're just constantly learning and growing and evolving. And you work with such a variety of people, not just in the own company, but with property managers and building managers and stratas, and there's just so many hands in the cookie jar. So it's very interesting.
And tell me about Atlas. How long have they been doing this, and how many of these communities do you serve?
So Atlas started back in 2015. So just over 10 years. Wow, time flies. I was gracious enough to start when we were really small. I feel like actually COVID hit and we doubled, almost tripled in size. Feel like more people were home, more people were reporting, just more at home garbage situations. So we grew tenfold in that time and have just continued. Atlas services, honestly, we have got a couple accounts up in Squamish, all the way out in Hope, Chilliwack area. So very wide variety.
Covering the Lower Mainland. That's great.
Yes, yes.
Good, and you've
Um,
made some slides for us, which I've cheated on, so I'm gonna take everyone back to the first one.
that's
Um,
okay.
but but yeah, talk to us about the issues that owners in these communities face.
So I find one of the biggest frustrations is that strata um, they feel like a lot of it is the owner's responsibility, but at the end of the day, it is usually a building problem and getting everyone involved from strata property management to residents, building managers, everyone needs to kind of come forward, continue to report, um, and just be a community with it. I feel like people are embarrassed if they have pest issues, but I mean, so many people, it's all day, every day, our phones don't stop ringing, so please, please report.
I have had little mice before, both when I
Yes.
lived in the UK and here in Canada, and they're
Mhm.
quite cute, these little
I
tiny mice,
know.
but they don't belong here. So,
Mhm.
what pests do you see? What are the top pests affecting condos?
Top pest, definitely mice. Mice within the condos, usually, if you're lucky, they only go up the first few floors, unless you have a courtyard. If you have an 8th floor courtyard, we find them quite higher. So the higher you are in the in the building, the better. We have had a big boom on an invasive species ant, actually called pharaoh ants. Um,
Heard about these.
yes. So when I first started in the industry, we might have had a couple of buildings a year, but right now we're getting a couple of buildings every couple of weeks. So
Ooh,
it's
interesting.
yes,
And
I don't
what are those critters, and what is it that they do?
so these little guys are tiny, tiny. They're brought in with fruit from like a tropical zone. So if everyone is going buying bananas at the same supermarket, bringing them home, they spread quite quickly. And you actually only see about 10% of the activity within a building. And then they just take over very slowly. And they don't have one of the main concerns is they don't have a special coating on them like our native ants, so they can actually spread like bloodborne diseases and bodily fluid diseases. So it's quite a concern.
Really? Oh boy,
Yes,
that's unusual. What I did
very.
hear from someone who told me that these were a thing
Mhm.
was that they don't respond well to spot treatment. You kind of need to get the whole thing out. Is that
Very correct. So
right?
it's unfortunately quite extensive and expensive. More units, obviously, the more expensive it's going to be. And you have to carry out treatment over a period of time. So our program, you get 5 treatments. It's broken down. 3 out of the 5 are every single unit, and then the 2 remainder are units with confirmed activity or units we didn't gain access to. You have to also use special products that are slow acting so that you don't trigger them into their defense mechanism, which is called budding. So if they feel threatened, so if you're squishing them, if you're using harsh chemicals, your own sprays or your own products, they kind of disappear and then they multiply. They split their colonies and then just start multiplying like crazy. And then they'll come back tenfold.
This sounds terrible.
Yes. And they're so tiny. We find that a lot of units when we get in, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't have any," and we'll look around and like, "Oh, well, they're there," and they're like, "What? Like, I didn't even see those." So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's very important. I've been trying to educate to report this pest early and just do the full treatment right away. Don't do spot treatments. Put the money out immediately and just resolve it. Because if you do it right, it will get rid of the problem long term for you.
Interesting. And
Mhm.
so mice, these new invasive pharaoh ants, what else?
It really depends on the building, I find, for the third pest. So, I would say cockroaches would probably be the next one.
My wife's
Um,
favorite.
yeah, but with that, it's usually, again, if you nip it in the bud early, sanitation, cleanliness really does go with most pests, but specifically cockroaches. And again, finding all the units with activity and treating because units don't report, unfortunately, and it can cause long-term issues for their surrounding units.
I heard on a previous conversation where the topic of hoarders came up that obviously that can create an environment for cockroaches and that sort of thing.
Yes, very, very much so, and it makes it really difficult, for our technicians because, unfortunately, if you're sharing the wall with that person, you can have as many a treatment every 30 days, and they'll keep coming because of the massive food sources and the harborage areas in the adjacent unit. So really trying to work with strata and the unit to try all avenues to have that unit cleaned up, again, will solve the issue long term.
Interesting. Okay, so
Mhm.
getting away from specific pests,
Mhm.
what are some of the early warning signs that owners need to be aware of?
I mean, for I would start with rodents. I mean, usually you find the droppings first. Then you'll notice the chew marks, and just especially in stratas and multi units, just report it immediately. If you're having the issue, 9 times out of 10, your neighbors are as well. So just communicate with other pests. Again, usually you just see them. Cockroaches, you notice them. Other pests, I mean, very common are silverfish in a building. Those ones are a little bit harder to spot because they're so quick. But just as soon as you see droppings, chew marks, you're hearing stuff in the walls, just move forward and tell someone.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. And there's your response best practice. First thing is tell someone. They should tell their building manager if they have one, their property
Mhm,
manager if they don't, their
mhm,
strata
mhm.
council if that doesn't exist. Is that
Yes,
fair?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, honestly, the earlier you report, the easier, I shouldn't say easier, but hopefully it won't take as long to get rid of the issue. Because if you kinda just leave it, the longer you leave it, the longer treatment and stuff would be to get rid of it.
Will take. What other actions should someone be taking at that early stage?
I mean, you can always try everyone thinks it's 1 mouse, it's not gonna be 1 mouse.
No, it's not
Um,
one mouse. Confirmed.
but at least I find if people are proactive, they go out, don't wait 2 to 3 weeks until you have a contracted visit or until you can get a pest control company out. Like, go buy your own traps, snap traps, sticky traps. You can buy your own, rodenticide over the counter, be active in that way. I would suggest at least having your own treatment out as long as you can kind of manage. And then another good thing with mice is you can find most of their entry points as well.
Yes.
So the plumbing conduits, trying to locate those, stuffing
Yep.
steel wool and expanding foam, protect your unit. Like if you're a homeowner,
Yeah.
like do what you can to help yourself.
Exactly what I did. Yeah, I should have taken a picture before I came up here, and you're right, there was not just one mouse.
Hmm.
I chose snap traps because I couldn't quite stomach the thought of a sticky trap and how to handle the
Fair.
resulting
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I don't know, I guess. It always ends badly for the mouse, no matter what you're using here, but
Yes. The sticky traps are the least humane form of control, but they are very effective. So if you can stomach it, if your morals are okay with doing it, any control method is better than nothing or waiting.
well, here's one for the audience. What's the most humane way to deal with a sticky trap? Because I've never gotten past the thought of, okay, they stepped on it.
And it's usually alive.
Yeah.
I mean, our what we would do is we fold it in half and give it a nice smack on the ground, put it out of its misery.
Oh,
Unfortunately, I
yeah.
know. Hopefully, there's no one squeamish listening.
I know, that's
Um,
what I was thinking, and that's why I opted for a snap trap where by the time
yes,
you hear the click, the job is done, right? Like,
yes.
it's pretty instant, and,
Hmm.
yeah, okay, thanks. Sorry for that. On to the next. Let's talk about, some strata pitfalls.
Okay, so I mean, I kind of what I mentioned at the beginning is I find sometimes strata pushes it back to the units. So making sure that you have the support of strata and looking into adjacent units, looking at outside.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, once pests get into a building like like cockroaches, mice, they can travel. They use the wall voids. They can go to the next
yeah.
unit. So it in my professional opinion, it is not just the unit's responsibility, unfortunately. Um, it definitely is a wider issue, and we butt heads sometimes with that because we want to get into other units. We want to do inspections, and people say, well, they didn't report. And I'm like, well, can we still go look? Because a lot of the time, a neighboring unit will have an issue. Either not know, honestly, they don't know they have one, which is totally fair, or oh yeah, I've had an issue for a year. It doesn't bother me, or I just didn't report it, or
Right.
this or that. So really being a community and coming together with pest control, I think is very important.
That makes sense. Budget smart tips, like, what's the
So I would again, yeah, try and get it early. The earlier you figure it out, the less expensive it's going to be. You can usually contain it within a few units versus once it gets to that, one, two, three, fourth level, they're all over the place. That's when it gets quite costly. Most pest control companies offer ongoing services. So usually their services will include a few units a month or per service, depending how often you're on site. So just making sure that you're utilizing those units and that the complex knows that they do have coverage. And then we've really started pushing for exterior like exclusion, so sealing up exterior entry points to prevent them from even entering. Unfortunately, when buildings get made, they don't think of all those little cracks and crevices and things, and it's very easy. And again, once they get inside, they travel between.
Absolutely. So I know that we're gonna go into a bit more detail now. You've
Mhm,
talked through farrow ants, the
mhm,
small, tiny, come in through fruit. Once
mhm,
they're in, it sounds like they're a problem. You
mhm.
think you're crushing them, you're solving the problem, you're actually just spreading the problem out.
Yes.
So that's a tough one.
Yes.
Bed bugs are also something that seems to be quite sticky in terms of a problem. Once a
Mhm,
building is known to have them,
mhm.
it's an issue. Tell us about how you would approach, a building that's got some bed bugs.
So I find stratas and buildings are very good with moving forward with any recommendations for bed bugs because of the fear of them.
Yeah,
So if a unit is reporting, we immediately want to get in there for treatment. And when we're there, we want to inspect all the adjacent units. So let's say unit 203 has confirmed. So we go, we want to see both sides above and below units. And if so 303, the unit above has them, we confirm it, then we want to inspect those adjacent units. Basically, just want to find all the units with confirmed bed bugs as soon as possible and get treatment in. If multiple units have reported and it's kind of already snowballed a little bit, we do recommend an actual canine unit to come in and look at the full building. Canine units, very cost effective, very quick. They're in and out of units, and then they get dinged. And then if they're dinged, then we'll return usually in a week or two and do treatment on all the units that got reported. Um, there's actually a chemical that we've completely switched to. It's pretty cool. It's actually a fungus that they've turned into a pesticide, and it slowly infects. Like they just have to rub against each other, and then it kind of affects everyone. And then
Oh,
it's
interesting.
very, very effective. It's called Apprehend.
Whoa.
So yeah, so they kind of spread it throughout themselves, which we have noticed a huge, huge difference in controlling when they've gotten into multiple units, multiple floors. So it's
Wow,
very
that's
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
You've covered off some of the tips for rodents on
Mhm,
steel wool, finding their points of entry,
mhm.
and removal. But what about these sort of occasional invaders like wasps?
Those are a little bit harder for anything proactive, especially wasps. Wasps, one good thing is that they won't return to a hive that they already made. So if you see an old hive, the paper nests, leave it if you can. It acts as a natural deterrent and the hive won't come back. So wasps
Ooh,
will all die off in the winter months. Just the queen and a couple workers survive. And then when the workers wake up, they look for new areas. And then the queen, they'll make multiple, we call them satellite nests. So those little pine cone ones you see, there might be a few in one area. So those are the worker bees making those, and the queen comes along, picks the one she likes, and that's the one that she uses.
cool.
So there's no preventative for wasps because you really do, for pest control, anyways, you have to treat in the actual wasp nest, like legally. So very hard to prevent. Other ones like seasonal, like exterior ants, things like that. Again, just getting it treated probably a couple times in the year. One at the beginning of the year to protect the building, and then if there's activity within a month or two, doing another treatment. So just trying to get ahead of it in the spring. As soon as you see pests, start doing something about it.
And you've already touched on, why this is a problem in a condo environment. You've got,
Hmm.
obviously pests that will either spread or come from one unit to another in the case of
Hmm.
potentially cockroaches in a dirty environment, one where they're able to thrive, even if the neighbor is fastidious and clean.
Unfortunately.
But also this delayed reporting issue
Hmm.
where, again, somebody thinks it's just one and they've gotten rid of it and they
Hmm.
don't report it or they're not concerned, and that unfortunately can allow a situation to get worse.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's probably what we see the most of, which causes long-term issues in a building or for a unit. And you could imagine it's very frustrating for the unit. It's frustrating for us because at the end of the day, we are trying to help these people with, no one wants mice or critters or anyone in their home. So again, like pest control is very community oriented. You need to report it. Again, I do find there's a little bit of embarrassment around that too. Like they might have a mouse issue. They don't want to report it because they're embarrassed of it, or they don't want other people in the building to know. So we've found that if there are a few units, we'll submit a survey. So we'll ask the property manager to submit the survey to the whole building, and that
Yep.
will prompt people to report because they're like, oh, I must not
Yeah.
be the only one having this issue. And then not only is the strata surprised, but the property manager is as well because they're like, I had no idea that the issue was, this spread out or that
As
there's this
prevalent.
many units. So we've had really good luck with surveys and people coming forth.
So obviously the first is a sighting. You've either spotted the critter or you've
Mhm,
spotted the droppings. You've made that identification point.
mhm.
I guess bed bugs are bites one of the early signs for people?
Yes. So bites sometimes, you'll get bites before you see the activity, especially if it's
Hmm,
very minimal.
mm,
Um, Honestly, once you start really seeing bed bugs, the issue's kind of it's already quite large. So bite
yeah,
marks are a very good indicator. Um, it's funny because you could have a husband and wife, husband and husband, children in the house, and only, 1 or 2 out of the few people are getting bitten. They could be sleeping in the same bed and only one partner is getting bitten, the other one's not. It's really just a preference of the bug, to be honest. Um, so if one person's getting bitten, the other one isn't, you probably have them. So lots of people think that they would get them somewhere else, but generally you're getting them at home. And then another tip for bed bugs, just to circle back a little bit, you don't want to move around. If you
right.
have bed bugs in your bed, you don't want to start going to go sleep in the spare bedroom. They're just going to follow you. And then you'll have a harder issue to resolve. So
Right.
unfortunately, stay where you are. You're the food source. They're going to follow you anywhere. So just a quick
Deal with the underlying problem. Moving is not
exactly.
the solution.
Yes.
Got it.
Mhm,
Okay. So your job, you've
mhm,
gotten the call to confirm that scope, right? You've got to
mhm,
help them out here, and as you've explained already, you're going to go to the neighboring units depending on the nature of the pest
mhm,
and act quickly because you want to see
mhm.
it dealt with. How often
Exactly.
do you recommend a solution to a community that doesn't want to invest in solving the problem?
Honestly, that's where it gets a bit tough. We are only as good as our approvals, and what strata
Yeah.
and the property manager will allow. So I just, myself and my team, I just let them know that you continue to give the recommendations so that if anything does come back to us, that we can pull up the history and be like, hey, we recommended this, this, and this. As you can see, these are the only approvals that we can get. So unfortunately, it's a bit tough when the strata doesn't really work with us
So
on
talk to
solving
me
it.
about Atlas's process. If
Hmm.
you're on call, you've come
Hmm.
in, you've made your
Hmm.
recommendations,
Hmm.
you get your approvals. How
Hmm.
do you document the work that you do and the outcomes of that work so that you have records and can share that with the strata council or with the property manager?
So for us, Atlas, any service that we complete, you get a full detailed service report after. It has general notes, but it will list every single device that we placed. If it's like a follow-up visit, it'll ding, we caught a mouse on this specific trap, or it consumed 80% of the rodenticide on this trap. And then there's always a section for recommendations, continue monitoring, increase services, recommend a point of entry inspection, things like that. That's all written on the report very, very well, in my opinion, compared to other companies in the industry. um, Especially like if we have a contract with a strata, it'll list every single device throughout the property, usually numbered by the units. So
Right.
they can get a very clear look that like, oh, okay, every single device is at 100% consumed at once per month service, so we should increase to twice per month, things like that. So, and then also internally, if the tech wants us, like the office, to directly let them know and not just rely on the report, we have like internal group chats for each area in the lower mainland.
Hmm,
They
nice.
email or they message in. Girls are assigned to each chat, and then they'll email the property manager directly and be like, hey, the tech has recommended this, it's this amount of money. Are we able to proceed? And then hopefully we get a yes and then can move forward.
Fantastic. Access coordination also an issue in these types of communities.
Mhm,
If it's approved and it's coordinated in advance, and yet
mhm.
someone is traveling or away, are you able to get the access you need to do the work, or does that cause requirements for subsequent visits?
It honestly depends. We really do push for access. We really do confirm services before we arrive so that we
Yeah,
know we're doing everything we can. If a unit is traveling, can't gain access, we ask, is there a family member? Is there someone in the building? We'll even like,
right.
can you leave a key?
Yeah.
Building manager, etc. And then if we do confirm prior and they don't gain access, something happens, we note that on the report, and the text will message into the office chats and ask us to reschedule for another visit.
In some cases, not being there is even better. Which treatments require owners to stay out for a few hours?
So anything usually with mostly insects. So the fair ants were lucky, especially since they're full building. It's a gel bait, so a gel bait is placed as a food source.
Right.
So people, pets, children can be within the units. It's completely safe. But if it's carpenter ants or house pavement ants, it is a pesticide spray. So usually the minimum is 6 hours. If you're pregnant, nursing 12, up to 24. But again, there are alternatives, not for carpenter ants, for like the regular ants. There is a gel bait, but we try and push the spray because the spray is a kill on contact versus a gel bait is a food source. So they have to find it, bring it back to their colony, and it kind of usually you need more follow ups with that because they need to consume more to kill everything off. Um, Bed bugs, silverfish, those all need to be vacated. Cockroaches are lucky it is a gel bait. There are a couple products that are sprays as well, but the gel bait does seem to be the best for cockroaches and sanitation, of course. Wasps, it's just directly into the nest. So as long as we warn people around that this is happening, maybe back up. Um,
Mhm.
those are kind of the most basic ones, but yeah.
Excellent. We'll come
Mhm,
back to education as a question at the end. But in terms of the escalation, you've talked about this, and I had mentioned that I'd heard it in the context specifically of Pharaoh ants, this
mhm,
treating a unit instead of holistically approaching the building.
mhm,
Um, Delayed approvals, as you know, I mean, stratas have a budget. They
mhm,
may have a bigger problem than their budget had allowed and not have the
mhm,
flexibility to handle it. That
mhm,
might mean that they have to do it again or multiple times and have a bigger approval for the next year
mhm.
in order to get it done. Communication, is this again often with the preparedness, the notification, and arranging access? Is this a whole at any point the communication could be a problem?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we have very strict like guidelines that we have to hit. We have to call, confirm with the unit, get their email if it wasn't in the email provided, send preparation. A lot of the time, units will call back and ask questions about the preparation, but we do have to go. I find like our office staff is almost just as knowledgeable as technicians because we have to be able to provide all the information. So yes, we have to call, confirm, arrange access, send preparations, um, communicate. I mean, with the unit, with us, the unit, the property manager, strata. So there's a lot. It's a lot going on to make sure that everything's safe to go forward.
I talk a lot with people about value and not
Mhm,
just price,
mhm,
because sometimes choosing the lowest cost option is not going to give you the best results
mhm,
or the best value for money.
mhm,
And I mean, clearly, if they are not taking the advice and they're choosing some lowest cost approach to the problem,
mhm,
they may find that this becomes a regularly recurring issue
mhm,
rather than something that they are on top of and maintaining.
mhm.
Um, it- Obviously, we understand that stratas all have their own cost pressures, but as a team, how do you approach that and encourage them to take the correct solution?
So, I mean, yeah, like you said, we're only as good as the approvals and the budget and what we can proceed. So we do generally break it down. I'll use an example for, let's say, a townhouse block. There's 6 townhouse units in the one building.
Yeah.
So 2 of the units are reporting mice, so we'll go with our wildlife department, review the exterior for entry points, provide a proposal. We will break it down per unit, and then the full building, full block price. We'll always stick in there recommended, highlighted with the full building. But you're right. If we send it and they're like, "Hey, we just want these 2 units," and we're like, "Okay," we'll even say, "Okay, thank you for the approval. I just will arrange, but just to be clear, this is not the recommended approach." So again, we just reiterated that this is not recommended. And then 9 times out of 10, 3 months later, they're like, "Hey, your work didn't do its job." And we'll say, "Well, we'll review the work, make sure it's in good standing, but if everything is, then we need to proceed with the full building." And we'll reduce the 2 units costs to a point, but not the full amount. So then again,
That makes
you're paying more, right?
yeah,
So
and you've had to deal with that issue for a lot longer.
another 3 months, they're mad. It's probably now spread to other units, so now more units are upset. And then you have to do interior treatment to get rid of the current population and screen the outside. So more treatment for more units on the inside, and then you still have to do the whole building on the outside anyways.
There you have it. Higher costs, repeat treatments, unhappy owners. Take the advice, follow the recommendations. It's value that you will be thankful for at the end of this
Mhm.
process. You had some tips that you mentioned earlier, but maybe you can recap on a few of these points
Mhm.
before we wrap.
Yeah, so prevention is so important, especially for multi-units. Even if you guys don't have mice within the units yet, do an ongoing program on the outside. I'm sure everyone's seen the black stations that are around complexes, commercial units. That's proactive. That will keep the exterior population decreased enough where they don't go inside. So as long as they're not making their way inside, you're good. Um, yeah, reporting early, getting in early, not letting it spread, putting the money out first for whatever's recommended. Don't let the issue spread. Once it gets spreading, it's more hard to control. It's going to take longer. It's going to cost you more money. Um, yeah, choosing correct companies that are familiar with multi-res, stratas, property management, even how to communicate and work with them, and long-term plans. So again, long-term for rodents is you need to exclude the exterior of the building. You can do treatment as many times as you want within the units, but if there's activity outside, they're going to want to come in. So screening up, protecting the building, again, putting that cost up front to save you the headache and angry units down the line is very important. Um, Even getting someone to review recommendations for your landscaping. Like if you got bushes all against your building, perfect harborage area for rodents. They love that. Right up against your building. Oh, it's nice and warm. It's winter. Let's just pop in here. Things like that. So having a whole program, not just focused on placing stations, but the landscaping, trees, commenting on bird feeders, unfortunately, edible plants, veggies, and fruit are a huge, huge attractant. And we see more and more stratas, unfortunately, putting strata bylaws in, not allowing that because it brings rodents and other pests.
Makes sense. Hit us with the bottom line.
So, yeah, so I find like good pest control, risk management, long-term solutions. So kind of what I was mentioning, not just someone that's just going to go place stations out that are coming up with a plan for exclusion, landscaping, even working with landscapers on pest control. One that communicates, you get reports, that takes a heavy load, I find, off of property managers and is proactive. So again, if a unit's reporting, they should be noting, reaching out to the PM, be like, hey, we need to get into these units as well, or at least could we call and speak to them? try and figure out some information. Um, just yeah, open
Fantastic.
communication. Yeah.
You've covered it all. These pests will spread quickly.
Mhm.
Early action matters.
Mhm.
Communication always critical throughout the process, from reporting through to arranging access, through to ensuring that you've got the solution dealt with, and then having the right plan, which
Mhm.
will save you money in the long term.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Now, I had a few questions. I don't see any that have come in yet, so that makes it easy. And for everyone that's joined us, I'm going to throw up a QR code so that you can go and visit Atlas's website. So feel free to click on that while Quinn and I talk through a couple of the remaining points.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things that we get asked about is handling treatments in occupied buildings without disrupting the residents.
Mhm.
How much can you do? I guess that's pest specific.
It is pest specific, but we understand, you're helping your 80-year-old grandfather and he has, a mice or bed bugs. It is really difficult. So trying to work with them. Unfortunately, some pests you have to leave the unit. But some pests like ants, it could be a spray or a gel bait. So really trying to work with them to see what works best. Like we have some clients that will go after hours. Like if it's a commercial building and they can't shut down for the day,
Right.
we'll try and work with them and go after hours or on a weekend, things like that. So most companies are quite flexible because at the end of the day, we know people work during the week, or have small children or things. So we I know Atlas, we do try and work and do what we can, but sometimes like bed bugs specifically, like you got to get out of there for that 6 hours,
You want to
unfortunately.
get out of there, I think
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
This is your moment of peace and tranquility where you
Mhm.
can go, okay, we're actually dealing with this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have you seen many CRT disputes relating to pest issues, and have you been called in as a result of those specific types of complaints?
So in my 6 years, at Atlas, it's come up once. So we've either been really lucky or we've worked with great property managers. So this topic is a bit tough for me. I was actually the one, it was in my first couple of years, and I was the one that was dealing with the unit, and it was about rodents.
Right.
And I ended up not having to go in. It was my manager, thank goodness, that ended up going in because he's got a memory like an elephant. I was like, that was years ago. I
Yeah.
would have to review every single email.
Yeah.
So what I kind of mentioned earlier is that they do push back that their bylaws will state that in unit activity or pest control is the unit's responsibility. So I do
Right.
find that they're able to fall back on that a lot. And as long as the property manager can show evidence that they've tried everything that they can, um, and that we've tried everything or that we recommended
Yeah.
things and then the
Reasonable
unit didn't
efforts.
do it. Yeah, exactly. So, I know at Atlas we do everything that we can so that we feel good at the end of the day. And I think that's how we've kind of avoided this um, coming up any more frequent.
Perfect. Last question for you. So what tips do you have for partnering with vendors like Axis to create this proactive pest plan?
So, I mean, for Atlas, it really is. I mean, honestly, I just want to touch on PAMA for example. Yeah, I know for us, like I've met like a landscaping company through them and restoration and things and like roofing because like we didn't really get into wildlife control, but
Yeah.
raccoons and squirrels, they're going up through the roof. So for me, it's been Atlas's relationships with other companies and people in the industry and just talking to them or giving them leads or vice versa. Garage doors are also a big thing. We can't help you with that. The rubber
Right.
seal at the
Yeah.
bottom, I should have brought this up with good preventative measures. That rubber seal on the bottom of your garage door, um, easy access point for rodents. They can chew right through that. So checking that area, and a garage door company would have to help with that. Like usually pest control can't come replace that for you. So we have a company that will recommend for that. And
Good. And you just
mhm.
recently joined PAMA as a board member.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Atlas has been involved with PAMA since I've been in the company, so longer than 6
Mhm.
years. It's been great for us and our relationships with property management. Yeah, I'm very proud, just got voted onto the board of directors. So being more involved in the industry, I do a lot of education with property management firms, lunch and learns, just to spread the knowledge, because unless you unless pests have kinda hit you, some property managers have been very lucky with their buildings and haven't had issues, others know a lot, so just continued education, I think, is very important, for not just property managers, but even stratas and regular residential folk.
Good. So visit Atlas's website, learn more, get in touch with Quinn that way. And do check out PAMA and the vendors that are there because they obviously have a lot of experience in the industry. So,
Mhm, mhm.
um, Quinn, thanks so much for joining me today. Was there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to touch on?
Not really, I think we did a good job going over everything.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Quinn. I do appreciate your time. We will return with condo talk this time next week with some data on condos for 2026. So thanks, Quinn. I appreciate